Hello everybody. First of all, as this is gonna be a purely voiced video, there's not gonna be any actual video content, feel free to just run this in the background and do something else. Secondly, as we're talking about guilds, I thought that the picture of my guild is gonna be appropriate, so that's the background. So let's start. Recently, just a week ago, the guild community that I was in kicked my guild out as we were the last guild with an actual guild in it. And they didn't think that guilds matter. We have since then successfully switched our forums and are continuing to grow. As the guild community has lasted for 2 years, I had plenty of time to learn from my own mistakes leading guilds and from mistakes around me. And from the success of leading a guild that I have right now for over a year. I do understand that there's gonna be people with way more experience than me. However, I do feel qualified when it comes to giving at least some advice to those that had never experienced leading a guild and are thinking of starting one. Bear in mind, these advices are mostly for people planning to recruit in-game rather than making a small friends guild. Tiny guilds can of course listen to this, but probably won't be as helpful. So let's begin. Number 1. Before starting a guild, you ideally want an active and stable MMO. It has something I have learned from being in ones that have decreased in population fast, namely Wildstar. It does not mean you cannot lead a successful guild in a small game. However, it is much more easy when you're in a stable or a growing game. Easy mode games are those that update just fast enough, as it might be hard to keep players through update drought, or as Blade and Soul has proved it, through too fast updates where it filters out to only the most hardcore players staying. I would also be cautious of old games. No offense to World of Warcraft, mostly because they have already established big guilds that players are much more likely to join than yours. 2 out of 3 guilds that I have led have started around 1 or 2 years into the game's lifespan though, so it's not impossible to break into the guild system as the new kid on the block, provided the game is still receiving new players. Number 2. As the guild leader, you want to always keep ahead of the curve to be able to offer help. I have seen Blade and Soul Guild collapse in the community that I have been in because the leader did not even hit max level for the longest time and therefore could not help those leveling. What is ahead of the curve depends on what kind of guild you're leading. If you're leading a casual guild, just being max level or simply level higher than the rest of your members might be enough, because this way you'll be able to join and help people through various content and just have a good time with your guildies. If you're leading a raiding or a PvP guild, chances are people will expect you to be good at your class. Being able to give tips to players playing the same class as you will make them see you as a person deserving to lead. There are different attributes that a leader should have as well, but being knowledgeable helps, as opposed to the opinion that people might hold about you if the only reason you're part of your guild's raid team is because you're the guild's leader. Do not tank the floor. Number 3. Be prepared to religiously log into this game for years. I'm not kidding. Regular members are allowed breaks. You are allowed breaks only on very special circumstances. Leading a guild on average swallows up 6 hours every day of my life, and that is rather on the low side compared to some other guilds. I have seen Black Desert Online guild collapse because the guild leader could not be bothered with the game anymore. Oh, I'm bored of it. Well, guess what? When between patches wait sets in, worse is just a month before the next patch, I am very much bored of Final Fantasy. There are times when half the members won't be logging in for weeks, playing all the other games, and I'll just be there, doing the same thing over and over and over again, helping the new people and helping the leveling people. You will be able to disappear for a few weeks to go on a vacation and such if you have trustworthy higher officers. However, from my experiences, everything sets on fire that one day off that you thought you can give to yourself, so I would be very cautious about that. Number 4, help must be given. Even in big guilds, chances are your members that have no duties to help out will rather be selfish and only do what is beneficial to them. There are only so many new leveling players that you can have at the same time too, so don't expect parties to form themselves. From a new player perspective, if they type in guild chat, "Can anyone help me with this dungeon? The queues are taking very long," or "Can anyone help me with this group quest?" or "I can't beat this monster, can someone help?" The worst possible answer is no answer. You can't be there all the time. Chances are there are things in the game that you want to do and you will have to be dedicating your time doing. Slightly less bad answer is, "Sorry, but I'm busy raiding at the moment." And I normally put in a sad face, or something along the lines of that. Even though the outcome is still the same, at the very least, the player does not feel like he is in a dead guild and feels like their existence has been acknowledged. A much better answer is, "Sorry, I cannot help you right now, but on this and this day we do evenings when we help people through old content." If you know that you won't be able to reliably help people every day, just setting a specific time for it every single week will help. It is not perfect, but it is something. The best answer is, of course, "Sure, I can help." However, let's acknowledge it. You're human, and you won't be able to be selfless all the time. And not all the time will the other members be helpful. And number 5, guild chat versus voice. I have found both to be necessary. It won't be so for all guilds, however, having just chat was very inconvenient as I couldn't respond mid-raid or mid-dungeon, meaning that a person could have to wait 20-30 minutes for a response sometimes. And advertising as mostly voice guild also didn't work, as a lot of new players do not know you. They do not know your friends, and they're very shy when it comes to joining you on voice, especially if they have just joined your guild. It can be very intimidating. Often you will be labeled a dead guild if there isn't enough chatter going on your guild chat. So there might be a point where the chatter will need to be faked. Saying something as simple as "Hello, how is everyone?" when you log on can make all the difference in the world. "What are you guys doing? Did something good happen while I was gone?" Or even something as random as "I really despise dogs" can provoke an actual conversation happening. If you remember to drop those phrases by every hour or so, your chat is alive enough. Eventually you'll have enough recruits that will like voice and enough recruits that will like chat to find the right balance, but until you do, you might want to fake it. Number 6, advertising your guild. Check what works best for the game that you're in. Some people do applications, some people do advertisements on Reddit, official forums, and pretty much everywhere where they can. Some people do in-game shouts, some people do whispers. One thing that I do not recommend is spamming invites. Nobody likes to be spammed by invites. A lot of new players might click to join without knowing what it is. You'll end up with a big guild that will be filled with total strangers that might not even speak the same language, that will leave as soon as they figure out where they are. You'll also end up being known as the spammer guild on the server. In Final Fantasy, I do every type of advertisement possible. I have an ad on the official forums on Steam. I shout it out in zones that I'm in with 30 minutes intervals or so as to not spam, and once a week I whisper all the guildless people that I can find with, "Do you need a guild? Because this is what I can offer." It is fairly intrusive, but compared to the invite spamming guilds, our reputation is fairly alright, with exception of a few people that have likely blacklisted me, and I cannot blame them. However, like I said, your advertisement strategy will vary from game to game. What works in one game, chances are won't work in the next. Number 7, standing out. Not every guild needs this, by the way. Some guilds do things together spontaneously, and it's perfectly enough. However, for example, my guild does clearly defined events. On Tuesdays, we do casual stuff where we do things like clue hunts, trivia, hide and seek, and other silly stuff for prizes that normally me and the officers farm. On Thursdays, we help people clear whatever they need to be cleared. On Sundays, we all download and play a free or a cheap game together. Some guilds I have seen do magazines. They interview, photograph their glamours, and write funny quotes in a professionally made online magazine that they then use to advertise their guild. However way you decide to stand out, one thing that I have to say is do not give up. Sometimes only you and your officers that are required to be there will come to your events. However, that doesn't mean that later on there won't be guildies that will appreciate them. Sometimes it's exam month and people can't make it. Sometimes there aren't any people that need anything cleared. However, you will only diminish your value as a guild by throwing them away. Lastly, building up a guild is a very slow-going process. 2 months in, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, it's only 10 or 20 people, I should just give up. Well, don't. It's always a rocky road at the very start. Sometimes drama will happen and 1/3 of your guild or half will just leave. Sometimes people that you considered friends will betray you, take all the money from the guild bank and go. It's not a reason to stop. Persevere, you can do it. As long as you believe in it, one day you will be able to turn around and be legitimately happy with your results. Have my friends that I talk to daily on Discord, have 20 out of 80 people online when I log in. Have people to do content with. And it all becomes worth it. And if you have any questions or advice, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I always like good discussion, and I don't claim to be right on absolutely everything, so feel free to write down what you think is right or wrong, or what has worked or hasn't worked for your guild. It's an advice kind of video, so feel free to give advice to new people or to ask questions if you're a new person.